Yeah.
And hitting record now. So welcome everybody. We're going to do quick introductions, just say your name and your company, and I'll point out people to speak. So Terry
Banazuski, Sunrise Banks.
Brian Alton.
Brian Alton, McClay Alton, 951 Grand Avenue, St. Paul.
Emmett Coleman.
Emmett Coleman, Strategic Public Affairs and board member.
Ted Davis.
Ted Davis, Weber Shandwick Worldwide.
Jamie Hendrickson.
Hi, I'm Jamie Lucky Hendrickson with Visit St. Paul.
Tony Mendoza.
Good morning, Nicolle Mendoza Law, Chamber Board Member.
Jameson Randall.
Jameson Randall, Laddiff Brothers Auto Body, and current board chair.
John Young. You're on mute, John. Somebody had to do it.
I'm already messing up the flow, sorry. John Young, Paramount Real Estate, immediate past chair of the chamber.
Alan Tuchtenhagen.
Alan Tuchtenhagen, Augsburg University.
Catherine Reed Day.
Catherine Reed Day, Story Slices.
Ray Noble.
Good morning, everybody. Ray Noble, J.E. Dunn Construction.
Tanya Bauer.
Tanya Bauer, St. Paul Port Authority and board member.
Chris Noonan.
Minnesota State Fair and board member.
Kevin Zickert.
Kevin Zickert here. Good morning, everyone. I'm with Energy Smart, part of the Minnesota Wastewise Foundation.
Jeff Fensky.
Jeff Fensky, Fensky Law Office, also board member.
Pat Lund.
Pat Lund, Delta by Marriott, Minneapolis Northeast Hotel.
CLEE.
Chow Lee from the Office of Congresswoman Betty McCollum. Thank you.
Welcome. Justin Burrell.
Justin Burrell, Minnesota United at Allianz Field and current board member.
Gail Cedarberg.
Gail Cedarberg, American Engineering Testing.
Sally Hanlon.
Sally Hanlon, Business Development, the Vomella Companies.
Shannon Thomaser.
Morning, everyone. Shannon Thomaser, Visit Roseville.
Murray Deeth.
Murray Deeth, Sundance Family Foundation.
Anna Powers. Anna is on mute. Anna is still on mute. Okay. Anna Powers is actually a staff member for the Midway Chamber. Pam Binsler, just introduce yourself quick. Pam, we're all introducing ourselves. If you want to just say a quick hello. Good morning. I just got on. So good morning. It's good to see all of you. Have a great day.
And Pam is with Ideal Printers. Did I miss anybody? Okay, well, I'm happy to
Dan
say
Leggett.
Oh, Dan Leggett. How can I miss Dan?
Good morning, Dan Leggett, Avant-Garde Marketing Solutions.
I was just trying to ignore his Penn State shirt, I think. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah. Well, all right, then I'm really happy that I don't think I missed anybody's pronunciation. So this is our economic development meeting for the time. We do these basically monthly. We're happy to have Nicolle Goodman as our guest today, and so we can get to learn a little bit more about her vision for PED. And I want to turn things over to our economic development chair, Terry Banazuski.
Well, thank you guys all for tuning in this morning. I appreciate it. As you know, I'm Terry Banazuski with Sunrise Banks. I do business development for Sunrise and have been working with the Midway Chamber probably 20 years. I hate to say it's been that long. So trying to make an impact in our Midway community as well as the Greater East Side. So I want to welcome Nicolle today. She is going to discuss her new role at PED, and Nicolle recently joined the City of St. Paul as Director of Planning and Economic Development. Prior to her appointment, she served as Vice President of Operations and Redevelopment Programs for the Alliance for Economic Development of Oklahoma City, a nonprofit corporation contracted by the City of Oklahoma City to manage economic development entities, programs, and projects. So welcome, Nicolle. I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
It's so good to see faces. I want to see this other screen of faces here so I can see everyone who's here. Very good. Thank you for your quick introductions. I can't wait till the time that I can meet all of you in person. Moving here to a new city and taking a new job during COVID has been interesting and challenging just because I can't, generally meet people in person. I did meet Terry in person, which is delightful. So I have met a few people back when we were doing, patio meetings more often. So I'm happy to be here, thrilled to visit with all of you. I am going to go through just a little presentation because I have some slides that I think will help sort of frame up the conversation. But please jump in, ask questions, make comments. It's extremely casual. And Chad and Terry will just stop me if there's anything that we need to talk about. And then once we get through that, we can chat. So I'm going to share my screen. And can you see my screen? Does anyone tell me?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Let's see what I'm doing wrong.
We did a test run at about 3 minutes too, so we know she has a screen.
Yeah, I will get
there. We
there.
go.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, got it. Ready? There, yes. All right, let me move this over here. Okay. All right, the Department of Planning and Economic Development at the City of St. Paul. That is the department that I manage. I'm the director, and it is a political appointment. I was appointed by Mayor Carter. I moved here from Oklahoma City at the beginning of August. I was in Oklahoma City for 16 years and moved here at the beginning of August. For the past 5 years, as Terry mentioned, I was the vice president at the Alliance for Economic Development. It was a little bit different than we do things here in Oklahoma City. The Urban Renewal Authority and several other entities related to economic development are managed by a separate organization, a 501c4 nonprofit contracted by the city to manage primarily public-private development projects. Any project that has any private development that has public money in it, we would manage that process. We still would go through the city council approval process, everything the same, but sort of the legwork that was done and the deal that was made and all of the front end work we did at our shop with the city staff as well as the chamber often. And then that was how we were able to get things done really efficiently and effectively. So I was there for 5 years. Everything that had to do with tax increment financing, any of the economic development tools that were available, we were the organization working closely with the chamber and the city. Prior to that, I worked for 5 years as a program administrator for the City of Oklahoma City's $777 million MAPS 3 program. MAPS is the signature program of Oklahoma City. It's a 1 penny sales tax funded capital improvement program. So they're major transformative capital improvement projects, such as a new convention center that just is about to be finished. That particular project was $280 million of the $777 million, but also included in that is a modern streetcar system, a 70-acre park, several wellness centers for seniors, sidewalks, trails, a new fairgrounds expo center, a whitewater rafting facility at the river downtown. So it's a really amazing program. That is something that the City of Oklahoma City is known for. When we get visitors from other cities, that's usually what they want to learn about. So I was a program administrator for that program, worked deeply in each of those projects. Then when I went to the Alliance, I was working on projects that were really leveraging that public investment. So for example, one of the big projects that I worked on right before I came here was an Omni Hotel, convention center headquarters hotel that wouldn't have happened in Oklahoma City, a 605-room, 17-story hotel, beautiful Omni Hotel, if we hadn't built a new convention center, right? So we used public money, build a new convention center, and then use some public investment in the Omni headquarters hotel. So I was attracted to this job for various reasons. The significant development projects coming up, the mayor's commitment to equity, new city, new job during global pandemic has been a challenge, as I mentioned. And what I've been doing along with just working quite a lot over the last 4 months that I've been here is learning the landscape, who is doing what, who's already in this, the actual landscape, the sort of the business landscape, the economic landscape, the political landscape, all the things that that you learn. What I left in Oklahoma City was 16 years of that knowledge, and that's it's helpful. It's helpful to have that understanding. So I'm trying to soak it all in and talk to everyone I can and understand where we've been, where everyone wants to go. So that's, it's okay. There's some good things to be new in town and some, baggage you don't bring and things like that. But the challenge is kind of not having that institutional knowledge in history. Also learning the tools. Minnesota TIF statutes are very different from Oklahoma TIF statutes. We used TIF very differently there. I would say maybe with a little bit more strategy. So I'm looking at what is there a strategy? Has there been a strategy? Do we need a strategy? There aren't very many tools, right? TIF is one of them, but it really can be used potentially more strategically. So looking into that. To kind of go into a focus or what, as I mentioned, I was really attracted to the mayor's commitment to equity and to the council's commitment and the city's commitment to equity. I mentioned this yesterday during my budget presentation to the HRA board, who's also the same humans as the city council. We acknowledge in our department that the planning and economic development professions in this country have historically played a real instrumental role in establishing these racist structures that now perpetuate racial inequality. We know that land use policies and redevelopment activities have created exclusionary neighborhoods and formed barriers to resources and opportunities for people of color in St. Paul and throughout the country. So I'm kind of reading this because I want to make sure you hear me that we are committed to doing everything we can to undo and eliminate these generational impacts of policies that developing planning, housing, and economic development solutions and lead to a more equitable St. Paul. We know that we have partners, even in the Midway, who we will be working with on this. We know there are people, organizations that are in this space that we'll partner with, that I am learning and developing relationships with, but this is a commitment that our department has. And all of our programs, policies, and budget have been developed with this explicit goal in front of mind. So some people don't think about the various different departments. We have planning, housing, and economic development. So I'm going to quickly just kind of talk through what each of the departments do in relation to what I've just mentioned. So planning, as you know, the planning department establishes the regulatory framework for all private investment in St. Paul. Recently, we've established a policy framework that supports job growth, housing development, and community wealth building through equitable growth with the recently adopted St. Paul for All 2040 Comprehensive Plan. It's on our website. Chad, you might be able to find it and put a link in the chat. I think the link that's on our website was from June. I don't think it's changed, but we'll put the adopted document up there soon. It just was adopted in the last couple of weeks.
Nicolle, we're going to send that out. We send an email out to everybody afterward.
Okay. Excellent. So that has just happened. That was a huge accomplishment. I clearly wasn't here for all of that work, but I'm very proud of my team and all the work they've done on that since 2015. That was I don't know if you're familiar with what a big lift it is to create and get adopted a comprehensive plan, but it is. So that was just done. There is critical policy work needed to dismantle these structural barriers to an equitable community. Revising the definition of family in zoning code is one that we're working on now. Removing requirements for neighbor signatures for certain zoning permits, evaluating zoning regulations to remove barriers to equitable growth, and evaluating investments with an equity lens. There's a document out there, it's called the Equitable Development Scorecard is what I think it's actually called, that many of the local organizations, community development organizations have partnered on together to create, is my understanding. It's really good. And we have a similar version in our department now, very similar. If you haven't seen that, you should find it. That's another thing we can send out, because it really kind of puts in your frame of mind the things that we all need to be thinking about as we're working towards development or other things. Finally, maximizing the current large-scale redevelopment opportunities in St. Paul, ensuring that each are a place of opportunity for all, to the degree that we can control that. Does anyone have any questions about this slide before I go any further? Or do you just want me to keep? I'll keep going unless you stop me. All right, housing, it's called the Department of Planning and Economic Development, but it's also housing. So it's not in the title, but it's the same, it is in the same department. I should have mentioned Luis Pereira is our planning director and Kayla Shuckman is our housing director. Housing is fundamental. Housing is fundamental for all of us. Safe, stable, affordable housing provides families with a solid foundation for all areas of our lives, school, work, health, our well-being, and it's critical for strong communities. Some of the investment outcomes related to housing that we have realized over the past recent past and things that we're still working on. These are programs that are current and going forward, but have already produced some outcomes. Is the Families First School Stability Rent Supplement Program. There are 36 families enrolled, but there's a goal of 250 by the end of 2022. 4D property tax incentive to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. If you've heard the term NOAA, that's what that stands for. We have, with that program so far, preserved 1,138 NOAA units. We do have a down payment assistance program. As of this date, 18 homeowners have been assisted. We have a goal of 60 with that program. And we have developed a community land trust, and there have been 11 units funded. They've been funded, they haven't yet been produced or preserved, but they've been funded. Finally, our housing trust fund, besides what public money is in that program, which I think I have another slide regarding, we have raised $1.8 million in private contributions for that fund as well, which is a huge deal. I'll say that that's something I'm really impressed with about St. Paul already. It's just how the private sector and the philanthropic sector step up and get involved, partner with the city and with each other. I will say that that is not something that we enjoyed as much in Oklahoma City. We didn't have that same kind of partnership. We did to some degree, but it's so impressive here. And then the economic development piece. Martin Schickel is the economic development director. And as you all know, living wage jobs and access to goods and services are foundational to healthy, vibrant, equitable, and a safe city. So our economic development team supports business expansion and job growth when market systems fail to achieve these goals for our community, or when something happens like COVID. We have given to date COVID emergency relief grants to 684 small businesses, business organizations, and cultural organizations to help them survive the pandemic. Ongoing programs, we have Full Stack, which is tech training scholarships to address disparities in unemployment, disproportionately impacting BIPOC and low-income residents. The Restaurant Resiliency Project is focusing on new technology solutions, including delivery apps. We've talked with restaurant owners and restaurant group owners who have said, we're spending, it's wonderful that people are carrying out. This is how we're getting by or ordering to go, but they're spending up to 30% of each sale on fees coming from DoorDash and other companies. Some cities have managed to stand up either publicly or privately sort of local delivery app service or other things that are helpful in that, saving the restaurants on those kinds of fees or just making it a more sustainable model. So we're looking at that and other tech models that are helpful to restaurants and bars and that industry in general. And then other technical assistance to businesses impacted by the civil uprising or COVID in various different ways. That can be a lot of different things. And then that program is also partnering with the private sector. So if someone needs help from an engineer or other professions, we're able to either make those connections or in some cases help fund those kinds of services. So as I mentioned, our budget this year, and I bring this just because I did my budget presentation yesterday, but our budget, your budget speaks to your values and your goals and your work plan. So I thought I'd go ahead and bring some slides from that presentation. Important investments we'll be making this year in housing stability, housing affordability, job growth, business support and innovation, equitable development, policy framework that I just mentioned, and then with an emphasis on community wealth building, community ownership, and community-driven reimagining and rebuilding. And community ownership can mean a lot of things. It means like literal ownership or ownership in the process of the decision-making, those kinds of things. Okay, and then just mentioning some priorities that we know this community has expressed or the city council has expressed in various ways, in various outlets, in various meetings, and various surveys. Again, policy work to advance equity, resilience, innovation, and economic justice, direct investments in business and job growth, direct investments in housing affordability, and that being production, preservation, and protections. So the bottom little graphic are some other things I think that the city has heard from the community and that are city council priorities. Some are not directly related to my department. The community first public safety is, not so much related to my department, but primarily, many of the others are. So we're looking at all of those things. This is a bunch of numbers, and I appreciate that that's a lot to look at, but just to kind of, again, give you an idea of the kinds of, $5 million in the Housing Trust Fund, $1 million towards civil uprising business assistance, which I'll talk about a little bit more, $710,000 in citywide business assistance, another $835,000 in COVID relief for businesses, and then permanent supportive housing for unsheltered, $460,000. We have a technical assistance program planned for BIPOC-owned businesses, a small developer growth program. What that means is we are looking at various organizations such as Incremental Development Alliance that we can partner with for anyone who's interested in becoming a developer, but particularly people of color who are interested in becoming a developer, but there's like either barriers or we need mentors to help or other ways that we can kind of develop that capacity for other interested people who aren't in the development community now. If you want to build a duplex, that's a wealth builder, right? If you want to like build a little small strip center, incremental development can be small. It's still wealth building, and it's still a great opportunity. And there's some barriers to entry that we can deal with, that we can help with. And so we haven't fully developed this program at all. This is something that we're just now starting on. But we have talked to INCDED, Incremental Development Alliance. We've talked to ULI. We've talked to others in this space here to figure out how we want to move forward with that. And then the new community engagement methods, that's largely related to COVID. We used to go out, and we will again, and do a public meeting or have a town hall or, something along those lines. Now we're doing it like this. But some of that, to actually gather data that way requires some software, something, so that we can talk like this all day long, but there's some additional technology that really would help us to gather data and get a community input that we'd like to use, and we'll use after the pandemic, because frankly, sometimes that's a way that we can provide individuals who can't come to a town hall or other sort of brick and mortar community engagement opportunities. So it'll be a good investment long-term either way. And then finally, yes.
Can I just want to, I'll let you finish this slide, and then I've got a couple of comments when you're finished with the slide.
Yes, then finally, continued investment in full stack, which is the tech program, data management system. What that is, that's really, frankly, that's just like in our department, we need a better software system. Like we have so many things to track, and it's really very antiquated, and we can do it, but it's really hard. So it's just putting some investment into our data management system. And then the wetlands and inventory plan is just something that we need to do. It's not a huge investment, but it's something that needs to be done. Go ahead, Terry.
So this slide, your investment, this is part of the budget that you did get approved.
Yes.
Yesterday, which is great. Going back to an earlier slide, talking about the equity scorecard, Catherine Reed Day, who's one of our guests on the call today, she commented she agrees that we have few real tools to use. So interested in hearing more about ways we can align and get more strategic to move forward or
Yep.
work.
Yep, those kinds of things. The scorecard is fantastic. They're also partnering with each other and organizations who are already working in this space. I haven't gotten to meet like Tawana Black yet, and the Center for Economic Inclusion, like, you know, she's got it dialed in, right? Like there are some organizations here, and I think even in the Midway, I haven't really gotten to talk much with like African Economic Development Solutions. They might even be part of the Midway Chamber, I think. But organizations such as these who are already here, already been working in this space. I've been here, you know, 4 months. So as far as how we can all partner and get on the same align our work and leverage each other's work, that is incredibly important, and that we're all kind of working on the same you know, path, and these are our goals. So I don't have that fully fleshed out yet, obviously, but it's I'm aware that we certainly don't have all the answers. We do have the ability to make some things happen that maybe, you know, maybe others don't. So if we're all working together and leveraging each other's work, that's how we can move the needle, I think. And I'm really thrilled to see that so many.
You also mentioned TIF, which always comes up in economic development conversations. What future sites in St. Paul do you think could use TIF?
So, you know, again, I'm looking at the strategy for TIF. There is a recently formed, you know, TIF district there at the Snelling-Midway site where the stadium is, and that's a good thing. TIF can the nice thing about TIF, especially how we do use it here, well, anywhere, is that's, you know, if the city's going to put an investment in a project, that's where we can speak with our values, like this list here, right? So if we're investing in a project, that allows us to be able to put some pressure for a certain amount of affordable housing or a certain amount of whatever it is. On that particular project, there is like a community benefits resolution that the city council passed, and so there's like a stated wish list, right, for the project. And again, I haven't been here quite long enough yet to know everything that's happened up to now and everything that needs to happen there. But as far as using TIF as a tool, it is a way that the city can sort of put their money where their mouth is and say, if this or any given development, if we're going to be able to support it, these are the values that we have, and these are the things that we would like to see. So it's a negotiating tool as well as a financing tool. In Oklahoma, we could use TIF for assistance in development financing. We could actually fill a development, you know, financing gap. Here, the uses are more limited, but it's still useful, and it really is. If it's handled well and strategically, it can really make a huge difference. What I notice here in Oklahoma, and we use TIF, you know, again, in a different way, in a more strategic way in my mind, but the TIF districts were geographically defined, and the TIF budget was based on, you know, what the property value was within that geographic area at the base, you know, the base property value, tax revenue, and then the budget was just based on what we felt like could potentially develop there. And then a developer would come and have their pro forma and their very clear gap and their rate of return with or without assistance and what they were planning to do and how it would benefit the community, and, you know, go through this dog and pony show. And it was important for that because that was, you know, that was kind of how we decided where to make the investments. But the goal was within that given sort of geographic area to assist the projects that needed it, and eventually the market would take over, and, you know, there wouldn't need to be assistance there. It was more proactive than here. It feels a little more reactive, and it feels a little more, and I say this without enough, you know, enough knowledge yet, but it feels on the surface a little bit more like scattered about and a little more reactive. So I really want to learn more about, you know, how it's been used and kind of analyze if there's a better strategy. The statutes are what the statutes are. So I have to understand the limitations and the opportunities that it provides. And then we'll try to figure out if there's some work on strategy that needs to be done. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And as we were talking briefly when before the rest of the group joined us, you've discovered the uniqueness of neighborhoods within St. Paul. And everyone has their own bit of identity, I would say. And St. Paul's very interesting in the fact that it is a city of many neighborhoods that people take ownership of their neighborhoods. So anytime something comes up, the neighborhoods are very, if you're in a certain any neighborhood, there's a lot of engagement, which I think is what makes St. Paul so awesome, because people do take ownership of their neighborhoods. So cross-pollinating neighborhoods, I mean, that's part of what the Midway Chamber's job is to help everyone talk to each other. So going forward, I really like in your budget discussions how you've included more housing and conversations around housing, and also the recovery investments. That's really critical right now, and making sure everyone has access. I guess that's more of a comment than a question for you, but how do you see, we've gone through, the Midway Chamber was involved with some of the money that We Love St. Paul, We Love Midway, to businesses that were impacted by the civil unrest. How do you see that, plus the pandemic impact as, let's say, a continuing wave through the winter? How do you see the city getting involved?
So as I mentioned here, that we do have $1 million budgeted for business assistance for businesses impacted by the civil uprising. And Mary Rick in my department is sort of leading the charge to, she's already reached out, she and another group of people on my staff have reached out and started talking with other organizations, partners in this area. So I don't have a lot to report yet. Again, my budget got approved yesterday. So, but we had already done some sort of pre-work there, to determine really what's the best way, again, to deploy. When we have funds committed to something, we can either just deploy them directly, or we can partner with other organizations or funding mechanisms or the private sector or whoever, and often leveraging each other's funds or leveraging each other's, pots of money for various things, or investing in something that will leverage for a longer term than just putting cash into something is maybe more impactful. So we want to look at that. $1 million isn't a ton of money, but it's some money. It's something helpful. So we've got to decide what's the most impactful way, and we won't do that in a vacuum. We will do that in discussions with those impacted and those who we may be able to partner with to make the biggest impact.
Okay. There's another question coming, or a comment and question from Emmett Coleman. With regard to the importance of affordable housing needs, there obviously remain many challenges to keeping costs down on building new housing. As you've begun to settle into your new role, what opportunities do you see to engage with the city to try and work through some of the traditional approaches that can add as much as 20 to 30% of the cost?
Work with the city, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So work with I would say probably fees, licenses, those extra fees that whenever something's happening, get added on, so that impacts the cost of the development.
That's an excellent question. We did not have in Oklahoma City this sort of Department of Safety and Inspections that we have here. But Ricardo Cervantes and I have been working incredibly closely on these kinds of things. And lately we've been working on it more from a business perspective, like what kinds of fees, what kinds of things. He, in his department, if there are businesses who have a business license that would expire and they'd have to pay for it again at the end of 2020, but they haven't been able to have any business for the past 9 months. They're just suspending that license so that they're putting it on hold basically, and so the months that weren't able to be used, then we'll move on. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but every little bit of fees that can be saved or waived, or anything we can do in that way is absolutely something we're looking at. We haven't looked at it so much from a housing perspective yet, but that's an excellent idea. And I'm going to write that down. Because for certain, it's one thing to put money out. It's something else to just on the back end, just allow things to be less expensive, frankly. So that's an excellent point, and I will make note of that. I'm going to go a little bit forward because there's a little bit more information I think will be helpful. Then I'm happy to answer more questions.
Thank you.
The Housing Trust Fund, we're putting $5 million in the Housing Trust Fund for this year, and that is in the Inspiring Communities program. There will be an RFP late in the year, early next year, and one of the pieces of that is includes an accessory dwelling unit demonstration project. So anywhere that we can add a garage apartment or a granny flat or whatever people like to call them, just continuing to add housing opportunities. So that's one area. Again, the naturally occurring affordable housing preservation. We're looking at guidelines to purchase and preserve at-risk naturally occurring affordable housing units. That's something, again, that we hadn't gotten really good at in Oklahoma yet, that I'm really impressed with Kayla Schuckman and her team. At looking at any kind of housing units that are currently affordable, just because of the market, the way they currently are. And we're like, purchasing them or finding a way to keep them affordable. And that's impressive, so she's really working hard there. I don't know all the guidelines yet. I don't know how far we've gotten, but this is a program that she's really committed to. And then homeowner resilience and stability. So, there are lots of pieces involved with the Housing Trust Fund and all of these programs that I just haven't had time yet to get into the details of, but I have really strong leadership in that department and she is very committed and very experienced. So she's been there, I think, a year maybe. I'm not sure how long Kayla's been there, but if you haven't met her yet and you're interested in housing, do it because she's amazing.
So Chad, it'd be nice if we can get her contact information and pass that around also.
Oh yeah, for sure. We can get contact information for all of these directors as well.
Yep.
And they're all I inherited a fantastic staff, which is wonderful. And then again, as I've just mentioned, there are limited resources from other units of government to assist businesses impacted by the civil uprising. And as you know, many were underinsured or uninsured or have been displaced. We're looking at new ownership models and wealth building opportunities, prioritizing that with this bit of funds that we have. And as I mentioned, Mary, Rick, and staff have already begun working with community partners to figure out our recommendations on how best to deploy these funds. So that comment about providing recommendations to the HRA board is a holdover from my budget presentation yesterday, but letting them know that we'll come back with some recommendations. But definitely would be happy to, take input from anyone and everyone in that regard as we're looking at that right now. And this might be close to my last slide. I just wanted to show you how much funds COVID has been awful. COVID is an economic development disaster. It really is. And so this is just some numbers, just COVID emergency relief grants by the numbers of how the department, not a lot of this was before I got here, but we continue to find look under every rock for funding to help families, small businesses, food halls, music venues. Food halls is on here twice. Cultural organizations, other businesses. So we continue. We know that it's, I'm actually, I think this round of restaurant and bar closures is probably worse for them than the last one because there are fewer supports than were available before. And, many of them are just closing and we're going to lose a lot of businesses and it's recovery. It would be a whole nother presentation. And frankly, I don't even have enough yet to give a presentation to think about how we're going to come out of this COVID situation. It's huge and it's going to be hard. So it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of partnerships. This is my contact information, which again, Chad, you can share mine and all of those with everyone in my department. All are happy to help, love to hear from you, love to speak, however we can do any kind of data gathering, input gathering at all. We are definitely interested in that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let.
So here's another comment from another one of our attendees, Dan Leggett. And he says, thank you for joining us this morning, Nicolle. In the 4 short months you've been in your new position, you've indicated the challenge of meeting folks and coming up to speed given these pandemic conditions. So thank you for joining us today. Having said that, could you please comment on a couple of key issues you will be keenly focused on to spur economic development in St. Paul and especially in the downtown area?
Downtown, I've been working with B. Kyle and Joe Spencer and also all of our department heads. So I have the Department of Public Works, so Sean Kershaw, Director Hom of Parks, Director Cervantes of DSI, and myself, and Russ Stark of the Chief Innovation Officer. We're having regular meetings, and now we're also meeting with B. Kyle and Joe Spencer, thinking about downtown. Downtown is hurting for so many reasons. You know, you all know this, I think, but since everyone's not at the office, there aren't eyes, there aren't people downtown around, and there aren't eyes on the street, and that just allows the opportunity for things to happen, right? For crime. And so it's this double whammy of there's, you know, the businesses are hurting because there aren't people there, and then there's crime, and then it starts to feel, you know, uncomfortable, and then people start to leave, and then there are less people there, and, you know, so there's like, it can get really bad really fast. And we appreciate that. So much work has been done downtown. I had the same situation in Oklahoma City. The last 15 years of my life, I spent, you know, like helping to turn downtown Oklahoma City into this amazing place it is. And it's the same thing here. And I know everyone here who's been doing that kind of work, we're all like, oh, downtown, because downtowns are so important. So, you know, I don't have the answers again right now, but I will just tell you that that is in the front of our mind. How do we activate, you know, as people as it starts to feel safe again, it will be different. You know, not everyone, we've all been doing this for a while, and it'll be, you know, it'll be a year of people working from home by the time we start going back to the office. That changes things. You know, the office, the sort of the use of office space versus, you know, do apartments now need to have a home office space more than they did, or housing, or condos, or whatever, you know, downtown housing? Do people still want to live downtown? They could live anywhere. Do they live in the suburbs instead? Like, how do things change? How do offices, do companies need more office space so they can spread people out, or less office space because there's not as many people there? Or does that balance itself out? Like, these are all the questions, right, that we're all looking at. And then what does it look like to get people back downtown? And how can we program events to get people back on the street? All of this obviously is the same in lots of different areas of the city, but downtowns are a different animal. And so that's what we're looking at and working together on. And also with, you know, with public safety and understanding that they're, and dealing with the issue of the unsheltered residents and trying to, you know, provide solutions there. So that was a little bit of a rambling answer, but just know that it is definitely in front of mind, and that we're all working together. I have heard in the past that the departments here maybe didn't work as closely together as they could or should. And I've been really fortunate to already develop really, really great relationships with the other department directors, especially those that I mentioned that my department works the most closely with. And I'm thrilled. They're fantastic to work with, and I think we'll be able to leverage each other's work.
Another comment by another attendee, Janet Johansson, who owns BevSource, and she also owns the lab over in the Midway. They're thinking about going back to work and likely have less in-office days, and just ask people to come in for their specified collaboration days. I would have to say we at Sunrise are doing the same type of thing. You meet with your team, and you know, you need that collaboration. Employees need to feel like they continue to be part of a team, and it's so much. Looking at this, I'm going to call it a dashboard of Zoom people. I feel like this is my team that I've worked with for the last 10 years, all these Midway Chamber members. And it's just, I think about Shannon and Jamie with the Roseville Convention Bureau and Visit St. Paul, and thinking about, you know, their teams extend to all the people we try and bring into our community. And, you know, the vaccine has to help us get back to the new norms so that for introverts like me, we can be with people, we can be shaking hands and kissing babies again. So I just think it's so critical. You know, we all thrive on that personal contact. That's what makes us people and human. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I want to reach out to the whole group here that are in the chat. Chow Lee from Congresswoman Betty McCollum's office said, thank you very much for joining PED and coming to St. Paul. We love our city. And we're grateful for all the things that you've put into the budget. I'd like to maybe, we're getting close to time. So if anyone else has any questions or comments for Nicolle, please put them in chat.
I didn't
Chad, if you'd like to, or Nicolle, if you'd like to make, you know, some final comments, that'd be great.
I was just going to mention that I didn't mention that my sister and my stepmom live here. My dad was here for 30 years before he passed away 3 years ago. So while I am new to St. Paul, I'm not completely a stranger, and I have been coming here frequently to the Twin Cities essentially my whole adult life. So I should point that out because I'm not completely just a complete newcomer, though it's different when you visit versus when you're here, especially in this kind of job. But
well, and one more comment, Tony Mendoza, he's with Mendoza Law Firm. You know, we all realize resources are limited, but what he hears a lot are people looking for a long-term vision for the Midway. So putting aside the scarcity of resources, and this, you may still be early in your process, but what do you think the city's vision is for the Midway, which we all call our Midway?
Exactly. That's really, I guess I would say early in my process to know what the long-term vision is, but I do want to work with all of you. I don't, to determine what it is, and if it needs to be different, you know, I am seeing a little bit of the chat, and I know that the Midway area was hugely impacted. So, you know, whatever the vision was a year ago, maybe there's some work that needs to be done there, just based on what's happened. So I'm just really looking forward to working with all of you. I haven't even really gotten to, you know, be out like physically in the community as much as I would like. Because of COVID and because I sit here on these calls all day long. So not on these kinds of calls, but just on calls. Like I'm here so much that it's different than the environment where I would be out going from meetings to meetings and getting to, like, I would come to you, right? And I would be in the Midway and we could walk around. And so that does make it harder for me and maybe slows down some of these kind of you know, visioning exercises, or the ability to take in some of the environment yet, but it's a priority, and I truly value and look forward to working with all of you on these kinds of things.
Well, and I'll give you one more question to wrap, since it came from Chad. The industrial sector is very important to the Midway Chamber and the tax base of St. Paul, and his question is, what's the plan for preserving industrial land? We know that, you know, housing, the demand for housing is huge, but we still need those industrial types of companies, businesses as part of our fabric, because they're good paying jobs typically.
Right. I can give you as an example, and it's not in the Midway, but just to give you an example of where that's come up so far, Chad, since I've been here, is the Hillcrest site. So, you know, that's a former golf course. It's got a lot of contamination. It doesn't seem like it would because it was a golf course, but the fertilizer and everything that was used all those decades, there's mercury and there's a lot of contamination in the soil. Anyway, that could be developed a lot of ways, right? There's a lot of things that could happen. And so when we look at various different development opportunities, we have to look at each of those, like the different opportunities and the cost benefit of, and I mean that in the broadest sense of the various ways in which it could be developed. And so cost benefit doesn't just mean dollars, right? It means opportunities for housing, opportunities for jobs, and opportunities for green space. The various levers of things that are needed in a given area, and the various sort of pro formas for a project that would result in those outcomes, it's all a balancing act. So like at Hillcrest, there's a pro forma, there's a development pro forma that has a lot of jobs and a lot of industrial, and probably doesn't need much subsidy from the city, right? It's the market would support that without much subsidy. If it were to be developed as solely as housing, where it is, with the amount of money that would have to be put into cleanup and infrastructure, it would need a lot of subsidy, a lot. And that's fine. That's where we have to, we have to decide what our values are, or our goals or needs in a given space. And then that's where our resources go, right? So and that's why community engagement matters. And that's why everyone's voice matters. Every development project has that kind of spectrum of those levers, and we have to figure out the right balance. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you. I am going to turn it back over, since we're at 8:55, if my computer time is right, turn it back over to Chad. I just want to thank you, Nicolle, for joining us today. We will invite you back, because this is something that's very near and dear to our heart and our economic development focus, which is one of the focuses of the Midway Chamber. But I'll turn it back to Chad, and I just want to say happy holidays to everybody that's attending today, and I hope to see you in person soon. One other idea, I know you're doing a lot of walking, but I just bought a pair of snowshoes.
You did?
So get a pair of snowshoes, and we'll meet at the Highland Golf Course once we get some snow.
Okay, I'm
All
in.
Right. Thank you. Over to you, Chad.
All right, it might be a little while still before you need those snowshoes, but
Okay.
yeah, have them in place when it comes. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I see Jamie on the call here from Visit St. Paul, and it reminds me of the Bazingo game that we played last night, supporting our restaurants and tap rooms. So I hope some of you were able to play that bingo game called Bazingo. Hopefully there will be more. I haven't heard how many people were on the call yet, but thanks to everybody who did play and who support our restaurants by doing takeout. Now I just want to close today by turning it over to Jameson Randall. Jameson is our board chair, and he just wants to say a few quick words about some of our upcoming events. Jameson.
Thanks again, everybody, for coming today. I think we can all agree. Let's give a big round of applause to Nicolle. I mean, what an amazing event. The Midway Chamber, we're celebrating over 100 years of making the Midway a stronger, a great place to live and work. And I've just been so impressed with how this group has been able to come up with very valuable programming. The programming in the past has been outstanding, and we've got some amazing events coming up this month, December 15th. One of our members, Kara Syme, she's an HR expert. She's going to be helping our business owners and sharing information about how they can be impacted by the COVID, questions people have about if one of your employees gets COVID, how you handle those situations. So I strongly encourage you to attend that event on December 15th. On December 16th, we have our celebration of nonprofits. Did you guys know that about 20% of our members are nonprofit members? And we are celebrating them this month. It has been some really great programming there, giving great information to our nonprofit members and those who are interested in supporting them as well. So I highly encourage you to attend those on December 16th. And on December 17th, we are going to be having a virtual holiday party. Do you have skills at gingerbread house making? That's going to be part of the fun. We'd love to have you join us. So stay tuned, go to midwaychamber.com. Sign up today. We'd love to see you there. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Jameson. And on that holiday virtual party, Urban Growler is going to teach us how to make some beer cocktails, and Studio Distilling is going to teach us how to make some fun cocktails. You can actually pick up a cocktail kit from them. You can pick it up today by 10 o'clock tonight, or order it by 10 o'clock tonight, and then you can have it in time for our event next Thursday. So thank you so much. This is recorded, so we will be sending it out to participants. And have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.